So, how good of a judge of quality are you? For the last couple of years in the summer, I've spent about a week and a half grading AP essay exams, something that still can't be done by a computer. And that means during the course of like 7 days, I grade 14 or 1,500 essays. It's a lot. When they start the process of getting us all trained, their main goal is to try to get us all thinking about the same standards. So we're grading each of our papers based on the same standards. So if I grade your paper, it's going to be the same as if someone else grades your paper. And they do that by giving us a bunch of essays that they've already graded. We grade them ourselves, and then we talk about why our rankings were ranked the way they were ranked. And then we compare them to what the powers that be said the proper rankings were. And we do that a few times, and by about a couple of hours, everybody's on the same page and everyone's grading the same. And since we need to do the same kind of thing here, all get on the same page. That's why we got the ranging essays assignment. So let's talk about those ranging essays. I know it seems like it's early, but we have to start talking about grades a little bit, because when we really get to start internalizing the standards of the class and the standards for good writing, it's going to give us something to measure our own writing about. So let's go over the specific grading standards. An A document is superior. It is superior in fulfilling its purpose. It is especially sophisticated in its argument, thorough in its development, or impressive in its control of language. As much as I would love to give you check this box, and this box, and you get an A, writing just doesn't work that way. So we kind of have to look for big picture stuff. Superior, above and beyond the call of duty, especially sophisticated, thorough, impressive. When you have a paper that does more than it should, that's an A document. A B is good. It fulfills its purpose. It's effective. The evidence and explanations used are appropriate and convincing. The prose demonstrates a consistent ability to control a wide range of the elements of writing, though not necessarily flawlessly so. It's good. It's effective. It's appropriate. It does everything it needs to do. If you show up to work every day and do your job, you're going to get a B. To get an A, you have to go a little bit above and beyond the call of duty. Same kind of thing here. A C document is inadequate. It inadequately fulfills its purpose. The evidence and explanations may demonstrate minor inconsistencies. The writing may contain lapses in diction, mechanics, or syntax. So the key words and phrases are inadequate, ineffective, inconsistent, lapses. Things are kind of okay in places but going wrong in other places. A D document is disappointing. It demonstrates less success in fulfilling its purpose. The evidence may dominate the student's attempt at development, the link between argument and evidence may be weak, or the prose is inconsistent in controlling the elements of effective writing. Inconsistent, less success, disappointing, weakness. Things aren't great. An F document is unsatisfactory. It demonstrates little success in fulfilling its purpose. It is less perceptive in understanding the evidence, or its explanation and examples may be limited or simplistic. The essay shows less maturity in the writing, manifesting consistent weakness. So, dumpster fire, basically. So, keep those standards in mind when you're looking at writing. A document that does everything it needs to do is a B. A document that excels is an A, inconsistent is a C, D is and F is oh my goodness. So how does this relate to the essays we're going to go over today? I'm going to go over the essays. I'm going to give you my first observation paragraphs about each one, and then we'll talk about each one in a little bit of detail. If what you came up with for your ranking was different than what I came up with, that's okay for the assignment, but you need to really focus on why your reading was different than mine and start to adjust your own standards to the standards that we're going to employ in this class. So, having said that, the best essay is Ray Gillette's Singing for Sex. It is a well-researched and well-constructed essay. It does a good job at examining the episode in enough specificity and connecting it to a nice array of research. There are minor slips in the control of language, but they do not affect the success of the essay. Second would be Ron Cadillac. Accessories sold separately. The claim made in the thesis is intriguing. In practice, though, the paper only uses Legally Blonde as an example of either Barbie or the world at large. An example about Legally Blonde which uses Barbie as a metaphor would work. Trying to use Legally Blonde as an example of the real world, however, makes the burden of proof significantly greater. It shows potential, but it doesn't really have much focus. Pam Poovey, WALL-E and Technology. The paper suffers from a bit of identity crisis. The explicit parts of the argument say the film demonstrates the negative effects of technology. However, a significant portion of the essay itself is about how Wall-E and Eve display more human characteristics than do the humans. The paper doesn't account for the latter subject in the explicit argument. The paper is also very shy about incorporating research to the point where it excludes rather than connects the arguments to a debate, which is the opposite of what you want. Sterling Archer, Burger Quest. The paper moves from an all-about-the-film overview to a vague examination of race. The lack of focus is relatively distracting. The discussion of racism has some promise, but it's not really explored in anything approaching real depth, nor is it connected to the claim about the film. Then we end up with, the bottom of our ranking, Mallory Archer, Technological Analyze Report. I will go to my grave remembering the line, Cretan subjects in school. Really, proofreading errors can be fun. The biggest issue with the paper is the blinding lack of specificity. What technology is under analysis? Furthermore, this is really an all-about-my-interview nailed to here's some research. As a result, it has no flow or engagement. There are also 3 or 4 paragraphs in a row which start with, to show how, which makes the voice repetitive and dull. So, let's go over these one by one. And again, the main thing you want to look for is why exactly is your opinion of the paper different than mine? What accounts for the difference in our standards? Because those are the things we need to adjust. The Ray Gillette one was Singing for Sex, the one about the show Glee. And we've got the introduction up here, and I'm going to mostly look at introductions in this video today because introductions tend to be the highlight. They tend to be everything you need to see. It's the role of the introduction, is to set up everything that comes out and set expectations. If you have something going wrong in an intro, you're going to have it going wrong in the paper. So let's see where we go. We start off with a number of sentences which are designed to hook the reader. That's the first job of the introduction. You can see this going on. Even if you didn't have anti-nerd violence in your school and jocks weren't at the top of the social order, you can picture this because you've seen it in enough other media. It's very visual description, and that is a good way to get the person who reads your paper sucked in. Then introduces the subject. It talks a bit about Glee, but it talks a lot more about the specific version of sexuality that is being discussed. So, yeah, we know we're talking about Glee. We know that more important than the show is this discussion of sexuality and how stereotyping is used within it. And then we end up with a thesis statement. In another video, I hope by now you've seen me talk about the thesis statement and the 3 parts of a thesis statement. The subject of analysis, the specific thing that's being analyzed, the precise claim, the actual argument, and the blueprint of reasons, the major points the paper is going to hit in order to support the claim. So let's see how the claim, the thesis statement for Ray Gillette Singing for Sex fills in. The Power of Madonna episode of Glee constructs sex by representing traditional gender roles and pariah roles and characters and creating sexual desire through male gaze, all of which lead to opposing versions of sex constructed to appeal to both males and females. So, point by point, subject of analysis? Well, there's a specific one. They're not doing just Glee for their paper, they're analyzing a specific episode of Glee. This gives the reader something specific to think about. It allows the writer to have specific examples they can illustrate. The precise claim that constructs sex which leads to opposing versions of sex constructed to appeal to both males and females. Do they spell out how exactly it does that? Well, that's the job of the Blueprint of Reasons. It does all of these very well. And the introduction sets you up for the argument as well as introducing you to the subject and getting you interested. Is it flawless? No, but in terms of argument, it's very argument-centric, and that's really what I'm looking for here. Let's go to number 2. Ron Cadillac's paper. His is the one about Legally Blonde. And we can look at the thesis, we can look at the introduction here and get a good idea of everything that's going to go on in the paper. We start with Shirley Chisholm, the feminist ideals, everyone is assigned a gender category, blah, blah, blah. In the last sentence, we have the movie Legally Blonde comes in. I'm not crazy about how little this talks about the movie. I mean, it only gets mentioned at the very end, and it makes me wonder what the real subject of analysis is. But let's look at that thesis a little bit more specifically. Ellie Woods in the movie Legally Blonde exemplifies ideas of masculinity while maintaining her feminism views and ways heavily throughout the movie. So she's able to balance masculinity and femininity. Yeah, the language is a bit clunky, but I think this shows promise. If we wanted to go through the paper, though, does the paper really focus on how Legally Blonde does these things? How Legally Blonde establishes a balance of masculinity and femininity? And how it specifically does that, what mechanisms it uses, and what's the effect? Those last two really should have been mentioned in the introduction, don't you think? Now, when you get to the paper, it tends to just jump between Legally Blonde, Barbie, and the world at large. And it's harder to come to an actual decision as the paper moves on. So the thesis is intriguing here, but it doesn't really do it throughout the rest of the paper. Pam Poovy's essay was the one about WALL-E. And I wanted to love this. I want to love all these. I love my students, but I particularly love the movie WALL-E. It's phenomenal if you haven't seen it. It's much better than it has any right to be. And we have a big introduction which sets up what happens in the movie. There's a lot of plot description in here. I'm not really sure if there's a hook, but there's a good plot description. We have an idea as to what the main subject is. Then we get to the last couple sentences. Technology plays a crucial role in the movie WALL-E, so much that the entire movie revolves around it. That's not a thesis, but it does a job of setting up the thesis. The movie WALL-E has demonstrated the negative effects on human life and the life itself. Of technology, it should say. But then the explicit thesis. WALL-E is an example of how the overuse and misuse of technology could have a multitude of negative effects, not only on humans, but in the environment itself. So, it's not stated particularly well or specifically, but they're trying to say that WALL-E is about how technology can possibly doom us. But later we get this paragraph, which after talking about the humans who are stuck on the space station, don't get up, don't move, and are weighted on hands and foot and don't really do much of anything, we get the robots play the human role. They perform daily tasks that the human should perform. Blah, blah, blah. Example, ultimately, WALL-E is desperate for interaction with others, and Eve is perfect for him. WALL-E takes care of Eve when she goes into hibernation mode. He carries her around and even holds multiple umbrellas over her in a thunderstorm, risking being electrocuted, which he is multiple times. It is evident that the robots and humans switch identities. So it's setting up this human versus robot thing, and it says that they're switching identities. But remember, that's not what the thesis said. The thesis was about how technology is dooming humans. It's an interesting bit that a movie which is honestly interested in the role between technology and humans and how humans become less human when they rely on technology. There's lots to be said there, but this paper starts hinting at it rather than directly arguing it. And this paragraph from later in the paper is a good example of that. While WALL-E shows a lot of examples of the overuse of technology and how it has negative effects, it is also important to remember that the technology allowed the human race to survive in the movie. Without the space station, the population would have died as a result of pollutions and toxins that were emitted into the atmosphere of Earth. However, the space station allowed the people to escape for a long enough time, while robots like Wall-E could clean up the planet and atmosphere and make Earth habitable again. Without the space station, this would not be possible, and the Earth would never be home to human beings again. So, there's this really interesting thing going on with robots and humans. There is a weird interaction. But this is as an aside. This is better than any kind of argument they were making. Why wasn't it the center of the argument? Well, because the person really couldn't come to a conclusion on it. Let's look at the Sterling Archer paper. That was the one that was about the movie Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. As an aside, if you haven't seen this, it is a shockingly intelligent movie, and it's very well done. Plus, one of its stars, Kal Penn, later on went on to work in the Obama White House, which was, who would have thought that one out? Opening paragraph. Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle is about two stoned underdog foreigners whose mission is to go eat at White Castle. Kumar is an Asian American whose father wants him to become a doctor just like him. Harold is a banker whose co-workers like to take advantage of his hard work. Their epic journey begins as they spend a Friday evening traveling around the state of New Jersey in a search for the White Castle burgers they so desperately desire to satisfy their cravings. What follows is a mind-blowing road trip that might just change their lives. Well, while this is definitely describing the subject of analysis, I'm finding a much harder time finding anything in here that's really an argument. In fact, let's take that thesis statement, I'm being generous in giving it the last two sentences, and compare it to this. Harold Lee and Kumar Patel are two Asian Americans, Korean and Indian, stoners who get the munchies and embark on a quest throughout New Jersey for White Castle burgers after seeing them advertised on TV. Is there anything in the paper that we don't get from this one-sentence description, which incidentally is from Wikipedia? If you can't outpace Wikipedia for your academic papers, you might not be doing a great job on the academic papers. Now, in the end, we have the Mallory Archer one, which was about technology. Yeah, I know there's a lot of things here. We'll deal with it in a second. Technology such as programs designed to help students out in cretin subjects and high-tech computers have become increasingly popular in today's classroom as compared from years past. I don't know what they're talking about here. In the last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 70 years, 120 years? Blinding lack of specificity. And with many factors, technology used in and out of the classroom will continue to be present in the classrooms in the future. So there will be technology in the classrooms. Okay. These factors include workshops that help teachers understand the newer advancement technology, studies showing that technologies used in the classroom increase test scores, and federal acts that give opportunity for poorer schools the ability to have technology in the class. With all this combined, it will allow technology to strive in every classroom. How does technology strive inside a classroom? Basically, I read this introduction, and I go, huh? Then if I was to read the rest of the paper, it wouldn't really progress much from huh now, would it? So that was the first group of ranging essays. We're going to do another batch of them here coming up next, and we'll talk about those too. And hopefully by the time you get through the ranging essays, your point of view is going to be a lot closer to the point of view of the classroom. At least that's the theory. If there were big gaps between how you evaluated them and how I evaluated them, really spend some time between now and then thinking about why your point of view is different than mine. I'm really focused on argument. I'm hyper-focused on argument because that's, after all, the purpose of these papers, is to get across a certain point of view. As I said, we got one more batch of ranging essays, and we're going to do a few more sample student papers in depth, one apiece as we go on throughout the course of the semester. And the more effort you put into evaluating other people's writing, it's going to yield real benefits to your own writing, because it's one of the best ways to help increase your own perception of the standards of what makes good writing. And that's kind of an essential part of why we're here. So, good luck to it. Good luck to it. Good luck on it. Something like that. It's late in the day. I'll see you in the next video. I'll be more coherent then. Bye.